Okay, let's get started. So we have our footwork settings on 1.5 springs or a red and a blue, and something like a yoga block or ball and a towel to put your head on when we're doing some sideline exercises. So we're going to start on hands and knees. The carriage is not very heavy, so it will move a little bit, so just be mindful. And just find one long line through your spine. Shift your weight forward a little bit and back, and kind of find the center between your weight being over your knees and the weight being over your hands. And then just round your lower back towards the ceiling. And I really just care about the lower back. And then lengthen back out through the lower back. And again, round through your lower back so that you're trying to stretch open the low spine. It should feel kind of thick. So you're not doing a big rounding where your upper back also changes. You're just trying to get a little bit of movement through the lower spine. And now push the carriage from the back of the legs out just a little bit, like an inch or two away from the stopper. And do the same thing. Allow the knees to come in a little bit as you find that length and that thick stretch through the lower back, and then return back to neutral. Very small movement. The carriage is coming in some. Put your feet against the shoulder rest so that you have enough room that it'll move. If your feet are on the headrest, that's fine. It's just the carriage isn't going to move as much. Lengthen through the lower back. So feet against the shoulder rest. So don't push from your arms and change your upper back. Ginge, try not to sit down so far towards your heels. So you're almost vertical to your femurs, almost. Instead of being back here and it being like knee stretches, come forward and have it start with that lower spine movement. Yeah, there we go. Good. And then start to allow that to get a little bit bigger. So you're pushing the lower back open, and then you're opening through the front of the hips a little bit more, rounding the spine under, push the carriage back and open the front of the hips. And a couple more times, lengthening through the spine. You're just kind of doing a space hold with the arms and the shoulders, lengthening through the spine and rounding it and lengthening. Allow your chest to begin to lift as you extend the hips. You can also extend the upper back. You might need to bend the elbows a little to lift the sternum through. And rounding and lengthening. Twice more, rounding, really push through the spine and lengthen and press into flexion and stay in your extension, and then just pull the carriage forward. It might not feel like much extension. Just keep support for your lower back, pushing out and pulling back in. As you come in, think of lifting your sternum and your chest. Lift up the chest so you're looking more towards the ceiling with the chest and the sternum. Just do that twice more. Keep pulling up on the low abs. And last one, push out, stay out there. Bring your knees underneath you so you're sitting back towards your heels a bit further, and just stretch long through your spine. Allow your chest to lift here. So now it feels a lot more supported. You're trying to lift your head and upper body up, and it shouldn't feel like you have to work that hard through the abdominals, in the sense that you're laying on your thighs, basically. Lift your sternum and chest, and then let yourself sink down a little bit towards the springs. And one more time, draw the shoulders down, let the elbows bend a little bit to lift the sternum and the chest, and then drop down towards the springs. Round your back and articulate to bring the carriage back in. And then come to laying on your back, putting your heels on the bar, the headrest down. Keep the carriage in. It is light. Sits bones distance approximately apart. You could be a little wider if you have tight hips. Roll up through your spine, pushing open through the front of the hips, and just press the carriage out an inch or two. See if you can get the hips to come up a little higher as you pull the carriage back in that inch or two. Push out just a teeny tiny bit, and then pull in by lifting the pelvis up a little higher, getting more neutral, opening across the front of the hips more. The feeling of extending across the front of the hips. One more time, pull the carriage in, press the hips open, and then feel like somebody's pulling on your knees as you roll down. So you're delaying the lower body going down and the butt going down, and you're trying to work through those bottom ribs. And again, roll the pelvis under, roll up, little push out, pull back in. You'll feel something in the back of the legs either way, but I really want you to focus on that extra opening across the front of the hip. It's not like I'm asking you to pulse your hips up and down. I'm trying to get you to open across the front of the hip joint further. Yeah, little push out, little pull in, little push out, little pull in. Very nice. Good, one more time, pull it back in all the way, stay against the stopper as you roll back down through the spine. Drop down onto the balls of the feet. You can adjust the headrest how you like now, and lift one leg up to tabletop, extend it out over the bar, and go into some bicycling motion. This should feel light, so that the work in this lighter version of single leg work bicycle is in you keeping your alignment and not letting the pelvis shift more than it's a heavy leg exercise. Good, just do 2 more. When you push out on the next one, stay out with your knee in tabletop and just stir that leg like one leg circle around, keeping the pelvis relatively level. Circling around and around. And reverse your circle, just stirring the leg in the hip socket. And then bring the carriage back in. Push out just a couple inches away from the stopper into a comfortable range. Drop your heel down of the standing foot and lift your heel a couple times. So the carriage isn't really moving. You're just holding the leg in tabletop, and then the other ankle is going down and up with the carriage still not against the stopper. Lower the ankle, push the carriage, push the ankle open. Trying to feel a little push-pull. And you'll feel how there kind of wants to be a little bit of movement of the carriage. That's good too. So you allow the carriage to come in a little as the heel goes down. Allow the heel to lift and move the carriage out slightly. Push-pull. Yeah, exactly. So most of the work you'll probably feel in the front of the quad, in that the quad and the front of the thigh aren't really changing. They just have to keep holding and working to hold that position. It's just the ankle that's moving. Yeah, exactly. Down, up, 4. Last one. And come all the way back in. Set your foot down, not in the middle of the bar, but in line with your sit bone. Reach the other leg out to bicycle and go into your bicycle on the second leg. Push, pull feeling, check in with your pelvis, making sure your pelvis is level as possible. Push, pull feeling, so you're not just riding the springs in. And leaving the ankle so that it's not just in a fixed position. You're trying to hold the heel still in space, which will mean the ankle joint, the knee, and the hip joint all change, not just the knee and the hip. Last 2. And last one, push the carriage out, hold it there, and just stir that thigh bone in the hip socket. This doesn't feel good to you to move your leg like in this circle because there's like clicky things going on. Grab the band, put it behind the thigh, cross your arms, and do the modification where you're holding the flex band. Circling your leg around the other direction, connecting into the bottom ribs. And then bringing the carriage back in, push the carriage out just a little bit away from the stopper. Lower and lift without moving the carriage. You're lowering, lifting the heel. The carriage is a bit away from the stopper. Lower and lift. And you can pay attention, since it's not super heavy, you can really pay attention to it. Are you aligning your ankle without having to look at it? Can you feel where the center of that joint is, not falling in towards the big toe side of the foot, not taking all the weight off the baby toe side of the foot? Adding that little lower of the carriage as the heel goes down, and little movement out as the heel goes up. And then you might feel, because your ankle has to work harder now, that it's harder to keep that alignment, that neutral alignment of the ankle joint. Push, pull. Working in both directions, not just trying to sink into a stretch, but lowering and lifting the ankle, lower and lift. So your knee is staying approximately in the same position and it's just the ankle moving. You're kind of in that mid-range. Last 3, 2, and last 1. Put both sets of toes back on the bar and push the carriage all the way out. And then just go into a little running here, lowering one heel into the bar and lifting. It feels very light. That's okay. We're not going to be here very long. And focus more on the lowering under the bar, not collapsing, sinking. And then bend your knees to about halfway and just lower and lift your heels here. So same motion, running motion in this mid-range, and then start to feel a pulse of the carriage. As the heel goes down, the carriage comes in a little. Push, pull, push, pull. With your peripheral view, glance at your knees. Make sure they're still pointed up to the ceiling, and allow this to get a little more vigorous. Push, pull, push, pull. It's light, so it feels like you have to work to pull the carriage back in versus it just coming in on you. If you don't feel any work on this sort of thing, of course you can make it heavier. But today, heavy isn't the goal. And try to make it so you go all the way into the stopper and about halfway out. So it's a really big range. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So you can make it a bigger range, Anita. Bring the carriage in, almost like a jump, that it's got to be that big range. And then push the legs all the way out to straight and bend the knees and come all the way back in. Roll to the side and sit up. And let's keep this for now. Angle your knees on the diagonal. So you're not sitting straight side, you're slightly towards one shoulder rest. Grab the strap that's more behind you. Sorry, no, don't do that. I wanted to do something else first, sorry. Okay, grab the shoulder rest with both hands. Rotate and look all the way around yourself over your shoulder. Then release the hand that's more in front of you. The other hand, push it against the front shoulder rest and do a little pulse, and then make that a little more continuous. So you pull yourself around and then you pulse open. Some of you might remember this from being in the studio and working with barrels. It's similar. And rotate one way, up and around, pulse. And we're trying to go fast enough that we get this swing motion of the arms to help rotate the ribs open. Feet are pretty grounded and just staying there. If you're on a lower reformer, you just have to scooch back and lengthen your feet a little bit further away from you. One more time. And once you get into that big rotation, stay there over the foot bar, push against the shoulder rest, bring your top arm overhead like you're swimming almost. So swing your arm over the foot bar, go up and over and round, and then start to make that continuous. Swing open, up and over. I know it's tempting to feel like we just want to work on getting our muscles stronger, but really if you don't have joint mobility, meaning ribs, back, spine, shoulder blades, shoulder joint, hips, knees, all that good stuff, then you can't be strong. You really just can't. And so we got to move in, strengthen, rotate one more time. Rotate open and up and over. And then sit back up tall. Switch your springs to just a half spring. Grab the strap that's more behind you on the back shoulder rest. Put it in the outside hand. Hold on anywhere onto the carriage, the shoulder rests that help you to not feel like you're going to fall over. Your feet are just gonna drag on the floor, or you can cross your ankles. But stay sitting up tall. You're gonna rotate over the foot bar and then allow the carriage to pull you back towards the pulley. If you feel like you don't have enough range of motion, just fold the strap in half is the easiest way to get more range without moving our gear bar and our stopper. Rotate. If you can let go with the other hand, it's a little harder. Maybe put that hand on your hip. Rotate one way and the other. Why are we doing this on a diagonal? You're not sitting sideways, so your knees need to be angled towards the shoulder rest, because I want you to have to get your ribs to pull around towards the shoulder rest more. Yeah, that's better. Rotating towards the foot bar is pretty easy, and then feel how you're rotating your shoulders, and you probably can square your shoulders all the way to the back of the reformer. Probably can't square your shoulders to the foot bar, and that's okay because we're on an angle. And rotate, rotate towards the pulleys. Rotate towards the foot bar, rotate towards the pulleys, 2 more. And last one. And then return the carriage. Put that strap back down. Switch back to your 1.5, no, stay in this half spring. Scooch forward. If you wanna sit turned out, please, and towards the front of the carriage, put your hand that's closer to the foot bar on it. If you're on a low reformer, don't bring your feet together, have them be wide. You're gonna push yourself up and over, big side bend, and then lift back up. And if you need to scoot towards the foot bar, you can to keep a hold of it. I was doing this on a light spring, and then I was also doing it on a heavier spring. Both felt good to me in a different way. So just using your feet to kind of side bend, can kind of push with the foot that's closer to the foot bar, push yourself over, and twice more, push yourself over, and one more time, push up and over, and then switch to 1.5 springs again, and just give that a feel. Very different feeling. You have to push with your legs more. If you can't move the carriage, then obviously it's too heavy. But to me, it feels like from this standing foot, the one closer to the foot bar, that I'm pushing with my foot to get my ribs to shift off center. Push over and come back up. And one more time, push over and come back up. Come to laying on your side with whatever you have to put underneath your head. Block, yoga block, something like that. Bring your body to the middle. Since none of us are like extraordinarily tall, we're all pretty average height here. You can stay right in the middle of the carriage. Hold on to the shoulder rest. Push your leg out. Once you get out, double check that your heel is in line with your hip and you're in one straight long line. Adjust as necessary. Find that little lift of the bottom side of the waist. And now we're not bending our top knee. What I want you to do is allow the carriage to come in slightly by allowing the pelvis to move. You'll feel the bottom side of your waist flattens a little. And then from this top hip, you push the carriage back out. So the movement is coming from this scooping and connecting through the top hip, letting the pelvis get a little less than vertical, and then allowing it to tilt basically. So it's going back and forth. Does that make sense? Looks like you're doing what I want, so that makes enough sense. So from this hip, it's not really driving from this bottom leg moving around. You're pushing, should feel like this outer hip is working. Push out once more. Once you push out enough that you get a little bit of lift in the side of the waist and it feels like your hips are really stacked, bend your knee and come back in. You'll feel your heel probably has to lift. Rotate your leg turned out, push out, rotate to parallel, come in, rotate. So I'm pivoting on my toes, keeping my heel down on the bar as long as I can. And when it has to lift, allowing it to lift. Check in with your waist again and make sure you're still neutral. As you go to parallel, your knee should be straight forward, not drop down. Yeah, exactly. Good. Reverse whatever you're doing. So turn out one direction, parallel in the other. whichever you weren't already doing. We were kind of all doing our own directions, so you decide. Rotating, pushing out, trying to feel the back of the hip a little bit. Is this the hardest back of the hip exercise you've ever done? No, but you should feel something happening. I want to try to break us of that habit of feeling like if it's not super burning the whole time, then we're not working. If you think about everyday life, it's more rare that you're going to feel one muscle group burning and that it's the whole body that's contributing to movement. Same with here. So make sure you haven't lost your waist. One last time. Come all the way back in. Put your heel towards the corner of the bar so that your toes are off. Stay in parallel. Push out from the back of the hip and come back in. So that extra push we were doing is coming from the back of the hip. If you want to extend the bottom leg out to straight underneath, you can, but still lifted through the side of the waist. Leg is still parallel. Trying to keep the foot still in space so that you're not pulling your toes back with you. Push and pull. And if I let go of the shoulder rest, I wouldn't just get shoved through the shoulder rest because I'm creating opposition. If you feel like you're constantly being shoved through and you have to really hold on, then you need to think about creating a little bit more opposition through the body. Stack your shoulders, ribs, hips. I feel like it's a little passive, this position here. One more time. Come in about halfway. Hold the carriage, not against the stopper. Don't let this top knee droop. Keep it parallel. And then lift and lower the bottom leg. Using your inner thigh, trying to keep the carriage still to start. Carriage is not against the stopper. Push, holding it from the back of the leg away. And then add a little pulse of the carriage, however you want to coordinate that. It's kind of like a slow motion pulse. Good, making sure that that top knee isn't dropping in. So the second you go to push out, I shouldn't see it wobble, and then you get it to parallel. Keep it parallel the whole time. Yeah, that's better. 3, 2, and last one. Come all the way back in. Stay on this side, but sit up. Put the block out of your way. If you feel like the straps are in your way for this, you can put them on the floor, but you're going to be on your forearm on the headrest. My hand is behind the shoulder rest. Look at the foot bar and put your foot on it. Lift your waist, push the carriage out. If it feels like instantly you're getting shoved off, you're not creating opposition, or it's just literally too heavy for you. So start by pushing out and coming back in that parallel alignment again. And then I want you to do that pivoting where you're turning out one way, parallel. So you kind of used the other easier version to figure out and organize your body. Should feel, again, like you don't have to hold on because you're not getting shoved off. You're creating just as much push in both directions. Try to not let your body pitch over your shoulder. You've got to get your shoulder and elbow kind of aligned underneath each other. Reverse the direction of your rotation. Rotating the leg. Rotating. And last two. Last one. And then come all the way back in. Sit up enough that you can adjust your springs. Switch to just the half spring. Come back to the same position. Put your foot on the bar and push out. It feels crazy light now. So keep as much as you can, keep everything facing the front. Don't let it turn towards the carriage. And just look at your foot. The reason I have you propped up like this is so you can see your foot. Just start trying to do a little bit of a jump. Start really small, so you're barely leaving the surface of the bar. Keep looking at your foot. Unless you've done this before and you're fairly confident you'll land on the bar, don't take your eyes off your foot. The harder you push, the more the carriage is going to go out. So it's going to require that you are more aware of your alignment, and you make sure you put your foot down before you land. It definitely gets harder and a little scarier as you go further, so don't feel like you have to jump big. If you are jumping a little bigger, you could do a little lift lower and then land. Lift lower and then land. You have to have enough time to do that. Instead of it going kind of drifting up and drifting down, go up, down. You're aligned to the bar and then you land. So it's more precise, less floating. Yeah, make sure your knee doesn't drop down. Keep connected to your shoulder. And need to see if you can push your body away from the shoulder rest so you're not so far over it. You're down a little more. It might also give you more range. Yeah, good. Last two of whatever version of this you're doing. And last one. And come all the way back in. Lay all the way down on that side. Make sure you have your straps available. And put that top foot in the loop. Press your leg out. Big crease in the front of the hip. Circle around as big as you can. Just don't chop your nose off. And then reach forward, up, and around. So kind of like on the Cadillac table. Keep it in front, the rope in front of the shoulder rest so it's smooth. Whatever range of motion you have available in your hip joint, you're definitely more slightly turned out as your leg goes up. Around, forward, up, and around. Last one this direction. And then reverse. I don't know about any of you, but I feel my bottom hip working to stabilize me. It's starting to get tired from all this sideline work. And so it tells me that the second side is going to be more challenging because both sides will have work to do. Keep your torso really still. If you're letting your back move around, it won't feel as much like core work. Rotating the leg, big range. Good. Last one. Turn out and your leg up to the ceiling as far as you can without your hip dropping way back. So my foot is really far forward. I don't know if you can tell that in terms of depth, but it's way in front of the edge of the carriage. And then hold the resistance. Just leave your thigh where it is, bend your knee a little bit and straighten your knee. So my thigh is staying still, the carriage has to move some. My thigh is staying still. Put your hand on it, Grace, and see if you can keep your thigh from moving. Don't move your knee towards you. Don't move your knee away from you. What I'm asking is that the hamstrings do a kind of isolated hold so that the thigh doesn't move, and that is a little hard. Yeah. Last 3, 2, and last one. And then you can take your foot out of that loop, put it back on the shoulder rest, sit back up, and we're going to turn around to face the other direction. Remember, we started on the diagonal, not straight to the side. Switch to 1.5 springs. Grab a hold of the shoulder rest. That should be easy to do because you're on the diagonal towards them. Rotate your upper body and look over your shoulder all the way around like you're trying to see the foot bar. Then transfer your back hand to the front shoulder rest and rotate away towards the foot bar. And then do that a couple times, trying to find a little pulse of the arm over the foot bar. Swing, feeling, rotate and swing, swing and rotate and swing, swing. Try to see through the walls, like if we put your reformer on the top of the Grand Canyons and you were just like looking out infinitely across the space, that there's a lot of room for your eyes to travel. And 2 more. Last moment. And then rotate open towards the foot bar. Take that arm overhead like you're kind of swimming and round your back to bring your body over the legs. And then open over the foot bar and push against the shoulder rest to help you stretch open the lower back. Open over the foot bar, up and over thick quality. Rotate over the foot bar, up and over thick quality. I'm pushing and pulling against the shoulder rest depending on the part of the movement I'm on. I kind of pull as I go over the foot bar, and I'm pushing as I go over my legs. Twice more. And last one, and come back. Good. Switch to your half spring. Grab the strap that's most likely is closer to the camera. So grab that back one. You can cross your ankles or just let your feet glide. Hold on to the shoulder rest at first, just so you're sure you don't tip over. And then if you need to fold your strap in half, it would make it shorter, bigger range of motion. Focus mostly on the rotation of the rib cage, especially when you're going towards the pulleys. And rotate, press through the arm, rotating back. And then if it feels secure for you to let go, put your hand on your hip or wherever else it's helpful to you, using your core to remain vertical. Rotating. Make sure you're not knees straight to the side, hips straight to the side. You're on a pretty steep diagonal, as steep as you can make it towards the shoulder rest. Twist your ribs around. If the strap is too long, you'll feel like you don't get much rotation. Fold the strap in half and just grab a hold of it again. Most of you, I think, need more range of motion. So you have the option of either adjusting the whole reformer gear bar stopper and moving everything in, or just fold the strap in half and grab it. Yeah. Rotate those ribs. Last one. And return. Cool. Put the strap back down. Take and turn your legs out. So I'm going to face towards you. So rotate and open the knees. Put the hand closer to the foot bar on the foot bar. And just do a big side bend. And kind of push-pull feeling with the legs. Yeah. Don't be so far back on the carriage. You've got to scoot forward so you have more range of motion. Unless you're on a low reformer, and then you'd have to move back probably. Push out, up and over. Two more, out, up and over. And push out, up and over. Bring the carriage back in. Switch to 1.5 springs. And just give that feeling a try. Push with your legs more. Feel like your leg pushes the carriage along with the arm to open the ribs to the side and slightly up on a diagonal. Open underneath the armpit. Just twice more. Big side bend. And big side bend. And coming back. Find your block or whatever you had under your head and lay on your side. Once you're laying on your side, put your foot in line with your pelvis so your heel is underneath your sit bone, which most of us that means our heel will be slightly lifted. As you press out, drop the heel down, connect into the back of the glute, lift through the side of the waist, and then just do this little push-pull where you're not bending the knee. You're trying to move the carriage by moving the pelvis. So you're allowing the pelvis to get a little higher on one side than the other. It's a side bend. It's just initiated from the pelvis instead of from the rib cage. And then find that place where the side of the waist is really lifted. You're very connected through the outside of the hips and the abductors. Bend the knee and come back in, keeping that space. Rotate the leg turned out, push the carriage out. Rotate the leg parallel and smooth, continuous rotation, not letting yourself get shoved off the reformer because you're just letting the springs kind of compress you. We want the springs to liberate you a little. Reverse the direction of your leg, turning out. Push and pull, and push out and pull in. And shoulders, ribs, and hips are stacked. Couple more here. And last one. And then bring your heel forward towards the corner of the bar. Make sure you're still stacked and you're lifted through the side of the waist. Push out from the heel, connect to the back of the glute, extend the bottom leg out straight underneath you, and then push out and in a couple times from here. If you're getting shoved through the shoulder rest, it'll feel like you don't have enough range of motion for the carriage. So just keep scooching back down if you're getting pushed around. If you can stick skin to the carriage, that also helps, but that oppositional feeling is really what you need. Push through the back of the leg, hovering that bottom leg straight, keeping the pelvis as level as possible. So to me, as I come in, I think of reaching the top sit bone over the foot bar so that top side of the waist gets longer instead of shorter as I come in. Good. Bring the carriage in about halfway and hold the carriage as you lift and lower the bottom leg. After you figure out how to get the bottom leg moving from your inner thigh, add a little pulse of the carriage from the top leg. Push, pull, and push, pull, and push, pull. The more you can keep that top knee parallel, the more you'll feel this in the outer hip, in the inner thigh, the bottom leg. Keep long through that top side of the waist. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Come all the way back in and sit up so you can bring your arm to the headrest area. I take the strap off just because it's kind of in my way. Put your arm over the headrest, shoulder rest area. Put your foot in line with your sit bone. Push out and then decide if you need to adjust anything. Adjust a little and then press out. You can use your top hand against the shoulder rest in front of you and add that rotation we were just working on a minute ago. So parallel in one direction, turned out in the other, pivoting on the foot, trying to get the torso working the whole time so that you don't need to hold on too aggressively. Some. And reverse the direction of those circles. Push, pull. And 3, 2, and last one. And bring the carriage back in. Sit up so that you can take your one red spring off. So you just have your half on. Put your forearm back down where you just were. Look at the foot bar. Push out. It's so light compared to what we were just doing. Lift your heel and then see if you can do a little teeny jump where your toes might leave the bar by like an inch. And you're barely bending your knee. Just teeny tiny to start. And then as you start to feel more comfortable with it, you can start to push out further, but keep looking at your foot. It's not going to be the end of the world if you lose the bar and you crash in. You're probably just going to make a lot of noise, but none of us will be able to hear that. Usually it's just startling more than anything else, but keep your eyes on the bar for that reason. And then if you added that little lift lower on the other side, then you probably should here as well. Push out, lift lower, bring it in. Try to make that really precise. Lift lower. Yeah, exactly. Lift lower. Try to bring the carriage all the way in so you're not kind of shortening your jump if you can. Yeah, nice. Nice, everyone. Last 3. Don't take your eyes off the bar. Don't try to add the kick until you've got the parallel leg foot situation happening. And then come all the way back in. Lay all the way down on your side. Make sure you have your block and your strap available. You'll put your head on your block and your top foot in the loop of the strap. Make sure you scooch down so that you're not jammed up between the shoulder rests. Once you get your top foot in there, push your foot towards the corner of the bar. Take your leg forward parallel in line with the sit bone, then lift it up and around. Big circle, reach forward, up and around. Put your top hand on the top side of the pelvis, and the pelvis shouldn't really be moving. So it's just that thigh bone or femur moving in the hip socket. Around, forward, up and around, and forward, up and around, and 3, 2, and one last time. Reverse it. So lift up, kind of turned out feeling, go to parallel in line with your sit bone, bring it back underneath you. 6 more. I think this direction usually is harder. So if it's too much in your quad or you don't feel like it's working as well, then go back to the other direction. Last one. Bring your leg up towards your turnout, way up to the ceiling. It's in front of you. Leave the thigh where it is and bend your knee. Leave the thigh where it is and straighten your leg. The carriage has to move. Leave the thigh where it is, bend, leave the thigh where it is, straighten. Bend and straight. Does the thigh move maybe a centimeter? Okay, sure, I'll take a centimeter, but it shouldn't be moving inches. So basically you're holding the hip joint in the same position the whole time, and you're trying to get those hamstrings to work to hold the position as well as to help bend and straighten the leg. 4, 3. You don't feel it, probably your thigh is moving too much. Last one. So hard. And then bend your leg and come all the way back in and sit all the way back up. You can ditch the block. This spring tension should work for us all. So then come to hands and knees on the carriage. Move the hand that's further from the camera onto the headrest and grab the strap that's closer to the camera. Walk your hand up on the rope. So this is like your plow on the long box, pressing back and reaching back forward. Walk your hand to where you meet enough tension and get enough range of motion. So you're trying to imagine if you're laying on the long box and your torso was staying totally still because you're laying on that box. Obviously this is harder because you have the whole body to stabilize. Yeah, awesome. Good. Last 2 like this, pressing back, reaching forward. One more time, hold your arm back by your side once you get there. Bend and straighten your elbow. Bend and press, bend, press. So tricep presses. Keep pushing the floor away with that bottom arm, the one you're standing on. 3, 2, and last one. Keep the arm straight and sweep it back down. And then you can put that strap back on the shoulder rest and just shift over to the other side. So grab a hold up onto the rope. Find how much tensioning in the rope you need to get a nice range of motion. Try to keep your elbow straight the whole time. You're not really trying to go up high behind you. You're trying to open the collarbone, like wide across the front of the shoulder. Yeah, that's nice, Grace. And pressing back and wide across the front of the chest. Good. Smooth, trying to meet the resistance in both directions. 2 more. Yeah, keep your elbow as straight as you can. And last one, hold the arm back by your side, bend and straighten the elbow. Wide across the front of the collarbone. Three more. 3 and 2, go carry. And last one, sweep your arm back down and bring your knees forward, put the strap back, and turn around to face the springs and switch to 1.5 springs. Bring your hands onto the foot bar and stand up into your elephant high half toe position. So round through your back, keep the carriage really pulled in and shift your weight over your feet. If you have very long hamstrings, you could put your feet flat here, but I think most of us will be more successful with a little heel lift for this. So your weight's very much back over the pelvis. You feel like you could almost take your hands off the bar. Try not to dive your chest down and through. You're trying to round your bottom ribs up. Yeah. Transfer your weight to one foot without a big obvious shift to the side. So you just lift one foot off. Keep that knee bent. You're gonna flex your foot, push your leg up only as far as you can stay round. Knee goes to the side and around. So knee comes towards the other knee, up, around, good, and around. And so I already feel it happening in my body, the temptation to shift forward and put more weight in my arms and less in my pelvis. Keep your weight back over the pelvis. It shouldn't feel like it's getting harder on the arms. It should feel like it's getting harder on the hips and the abs. Yeah. Reverse the direction of that circle. Pelvis as centered as possible between the right and left. Rounding your bottom ribs up so your leg only gets to lift as high as you can keep round. 4, 3, 2, and last one. Set that foot down. Find the center and then try to keep as centered as you can while you lift the other leg up, kind of flamingo position. Circle your leg around one way, trying to keep the carriage still, shifting your weight back, pelvis over the foot, circling your leg around. Your knee should stay straight. If you lift your heel way too high, you won't be able to keep your knee straight. So you might need to push your toes forward a little bit and not quite be in such a stiletto, be in kind of kitten heel. And reverse the direction, circle and circle. As the knee goes to the side, you're trying to not shift the hips to the opposite side. Around and around. Last 3, 2, and last 1. And set your foot down. Put your feet both flat on the carriage and step one forward of the other significantly, like towards the front edge of the carriage. Yeah, bend your front knee to push the back leg out towards straight, and then bend the back leg to pull the carriage back in. So you're pushing out, one leg is straightening, then the other leg is trying to straighten. That's right. So the back leg pushes towards straight. Shift your weight back so you can bend the back leg. You should be able to almost take your hands off the bar when you shift back enough so you can push with your arms. Yeah, there we go. Push, pull, flex your front foot as the carriage comes in so that you get a little more opening through the ankle and the calf. Lift your toes off the carriage. Yeah. As the carriage comes in, lift those toes. And then try not to just lift the toes, but lift the whole surface of the foot except for the heel. Yes, last one. Switch which foot is forward, which foot is back. And push the back leg towards straight, trying to reach that heel down as much as you can. And then as the carriage comes in, straighten the front leg. Back leg straightening, front leg straightening. Back leg straightening. Gotta bend your back knee and shift your weight back, or you'll feel like your legs just want to be straight as you come in. Yeah, one is straightening, one is bending. Start to lift the front toes and the surface of the front of the foot as you bring the carriage in. If you don't feel like you can straighten that leg very much, move your foot a little further forward. It might help you. So you could have your toes even off the carriage. Yeah, last two. Should feel kind of nice. And last one, and bring it back in. Cool. Set your knees down, switch to 2 red springs, maybe even 2.5 if you're feeling ambitious today. Point your knees and, point your elbows towards your knees, round your back and sit back towards your heels for your knee stretches. So you're not literally sitting on your heels, you just have about 2/3 of your weight back. So there should be some space here. And then push the carriage out, pull it back in, push, pull. Trying to stay round through the lower back. Yeah, that's it. Pull it in, emphasize in, and in, and in, in. Yeah. 3, 2, and last one. If you'd like to add more challenge to this, we're gonna be lifted up off of the carriage, then switch to 1.5 springs. If you're gonna do it with your knees down like we just did again, another set, keep the springs you have. So if you wanna follow me, you're gonna come up to that high half toe elephant position again with your 1.5 springs. Bend your knees and come down into that knee stretches with the hovering position. So you're forward, your knees are up, your back is round. Cat back. Yes, this should be really hard to hold. Then stand back up to your elephant round back. Don't move the carriage as you come down into your knee stretches round back position. Shift your weight forward more, Jessica. It'll be more exciting for you. There we go. Then push the carriage out and pull it back in a few times. Your body isn't moving. Your legs are just moving. Push, pull, push. And then bring the carriage back in. Lift your heels, lift your knees back up. So we're gonna add to that. So bend the knees, shift your weight a little bit forward. Your face should be kind of over the gear bar. Bend your knees, knee stretches position. Hover one foot off, push out, bicycle the legs in opposition. If you keep smashing into the stopper, it means you're not bending the standing leg enough as you come in. Bend the standing leg, get down low. Bend it. And then pause for 1 second. If you're doing that bicycle version, look at me for 1 second. What happens is this standing leg stays straight and then I smash into the stopper. You've got to straighten it. Get your knee to bend. Bend your knee, not way up here, but bend it to come in. Yeah. Stay low, stay low. That's good, Grace. Just switch your leg. Yeah, there we go. Bend your standing leg, everybody, as the carriage comes in. Let's switch to the other side. On all knee stretches where our knees are hovering, the cheat is to lift our legs to straighter and lift our butts higher because it makes it easier, of course. Stay forward, stay low. Look at how close your knees are to the carriage. Mine are about the size of one of those orange mini stability balls. I'm going to try to keep that as I bring the carriage in each time. Push, pull, push, pull. Bend your knee to bring it in. There we go. About 3 more. And last one. And then you can bring the carriage back in, set your knees down, and switch to 2 red springs. And we'll just go into our single thigh stretch. If you've always done it where you're standing on the floor at the side, you might try where you put your foot on this rail and open here. This might be a little more accessible. Or you can bring your foot up here. Obviously, that's a big jump from where we were. It's meant to be heavy, so pretty please don't do this on one spring. Do this on a heavy spring so that you get the back of the glute working to help you open the front of the hip. Try to think of opening the back hip more than the front hip. And if you're foot is sliding because you're on the rail, use your arms a little more to assist you. Yeah. And then switch to doing the same thing on the other side, whatever you chose to do. Pushing out, opening your hips, pulling back in. One last time. And then you can take and kind of reattach your legs and you're all done. Good job.